Hello everyone. I've always wanted to give some tutorials on C++ because it is actually my first language of choice when it comes to coding these questions. I use it because the code is usually shorter. I mean, none of this public static void main that you see in Java. Also, there are no classes for that matter. Well, you don't have to use classes in C++. Plus, C++ have this reputation of being fast, and I've experienced this because I have written code in Java that didn't get accepted. It was too slow. I tried to make it more efficient. I still failed. But when I wrote the exact same code in C++, well, I mean the same approach, it got accepted. Like first go, I didn't have to fine-tune it. So if you're asking me, then I think it's good to know about C++. Of course, I'm being biased here because that is my first language. It's actually natural to me. But I think the syntax is pretty much the same with Java. So really, if you're already okay with Java, it won't take you long to get started with C++. I mean, I can give you a piece of code and you wouldn't be able to tell if it's C++ or Java. In particular, variables are the same. You have the same types in C++. You have your int, your char, your float, double, string, long. Can't think of anything else right now. If and else statements are exactly the same. For loop and while loop are exactly the same. For each loop is slightly different, and that's because you want to use pointers. But when you see it, you'll realize that it's pretty much just the same as well. Now, of course, there are some differences. Classes are different. Well, again, the difference is quite minimal actually, but we have something called structs in C++, which you probably haven't seen before if you haven't done C or C++. Functions, again, mostly the same, except that you have to declare it at the start. I mean, if we get to do functions or classes or structs in C++, you'll see the difference. It's really not much. Pointers. Now, this is something you can avoid. You have to learn about pointers somewhere else because I don't want to explain how pointers work in C++. But you can pretty much avoid using pointers in doing these coding questions. It does make things faster though, so maybe on the later stages you have to use pointers. I don't know, maybe I can talk about pointers later on, but I just don't see it right now. Iterators, this is how you iterate through a map, a set. You're going to have to learn about this. That's something new-ish. You have something similar in Java, but I don't know. Like, I think Java iterator is a pain to use, so I avoid it. Whereas in C++, I like it. So I use iterators a lot in C++. I'll say something here about static and dynamic arrays. There is one big difference between arrays in C++ and arrays in Java. So in Java, we can do something like int and equal to, you get the user input for an integer, and then you can make an array of that size. Well, you can do something like this in Java. You can't do that in C++. And you'll see more when we get to, well, if I ever do like this kind of dynamic arrays in C++, you'll see it. But most of the time I use the equivalent of array lists in Java. Like there is a class called vector in C++. That's what I use. Which means that there's a whole bunch of classes that you need to learn. So these are the libraries. We call it the STL, the standard template library. So things like your queue, your map, your set, there's a class called algorithm. There's a whole bunch of library calls that you can use in C++. They're all inside this thing called STL. And this is stuff you have to learn for, well, in doing these coding questions. So I think those are the similarities and differences between Java and C++. Well, the major ones that I can think of anyway. But when you just first starting out, I think the biggest hurdle is working out how input and output works. And actually this is a big reason to use C++ because input and output is really easy to do in C++. You don't have to worry about scanner. So maybe in this first video, I'm just going to do a simple input and output. So let's choose a simple problem, 7 wonders. Let me just tell you what this problem is about. Your input is a string containing only T, C, or G, and you have to compute a score based on the T, C, or G. So the score is calculated by doing the number of T squared, the number of C squared, and the number of G squared. So if you get, okay, let's look at another one. So here you got 3 C's, so your score is going to be 3 squared. Here you got 2 of each, so your score is going to be 2 squared plus 2 squared plus 2 squared. That would be 12. But what about the 14? Why is the result 26? Well, because for each set that you have, for each TCG set, you get an extra 7 points. So you have 2 sets of TCG, so you get 2 extra, well, 2 times 7 equal to 14 more points. So one more time, let's look at the first one. T, 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 you get 3 squared. C and C, you get 2 squared. G, just 1 G, you get 1 squared. And then how many sets of TCG do you have? Well, there's 1 set, so you get an extra 7 points, as explained here. If I'm not making sense, then maybe just go back, go to the question and just give it a read. I'm also going to show you my setup. So sometimes I just use the terminal. This is WSL, by the way. I talk about this in my first ever video introduction. Basically, it's a Unix terminal, well, Linux terminal. Got a folder here with all the questions. So what was this called? 7 wonders. Okay, I've done actually. Okay, well, let's get rid of that. So start again. I have a template. This is like a C++ template that I use. The funny thing is I don't know how to do this in Visual Studio Code. So what I usually do is I make a file, put the template in, and then I just open it on Visual Studio. I don't even use Visual Studio Code sometimes because I just open Vim on the terminal and work on that. So, well, if you do have Visual Studio Code, it'll let you do completion. I hope it does. Yeah, it does. So the int v and v, yes. Okay, so this is my setup, and once I've written the code, let's just do a hello world. Cout hello. I just compile it on the command line and I run it there. And because I have access to the terminal, I can do lots of stuff. I mean, I can make custom inputs and a few other things. Can't think of anything right now, but yeah, usually I have several inputs that I can test my code with. You can see, maybe I'll make it bigger. You can see here that that's how we do output in C++. So you just write cout followed by this delimiter. It's arrow. So I'm printing out hello, and just this means end line, so a new line. If you want to print more than one object or one variable, whatever, then you just put that symbol, the arrow symbol. So that's going to give me hello world. Okay, so if you want to put extra new lines, just do it like this. I mean, you can write in several lines, of course, but Okay. Anyway, if you're here, you probably know how to do simple outputs in C++, so don't know if I'm wasting your time. All these libraries, do I use them all? No, but they're in my template. So when I start a new CPP file, I just get them all. Really, for this problem, you only need the first one. So yeah, for most of the time, you probably only need that one library. This is the one that you use to do input and output. It's like your equivalent of scanner in Java. So let's get the problem. What's my input? So I'm going to input a string. Actually, no. One nice thing about C++ is that I can read character by character. So how do I do that? Okay. I'm going to make a char, ch. And if I want to read in one character, this is how I do it. So you see how that's simpler to write than in Java. I just go cin and send it to ch. That's going to read one character from the input. If I want to read more characters, then I can do something like that. Well, okay, we need to automate the process. We need to have some sort of loop. And let me just show you how this can be done. Like this. The way to think about this is that I'm asking C++ to read me character from the input. If there is a character to be read, then this whole thing, cin, will return true, which means you will go inside the while loop. Okay, so every time you start the iteration, it's going to perform this cin, and every time there's a new character to read, it's going to return true. At any time there's no more characters to read, it's going to give you false, so you will exit the loop. So this will let me read the character one by one until there's no more character to read. Of course, you can also just read a string and then process the string character by character, but I thought I'll show you how to do it this way. What do we want to do with the input anyway? So I'm gonna get keep this here. I'm gonna get tcg ttc. Okay, so I need to know how many t's I got, how many c I got, and how many g's I got. So in t equal to 0, in c equal to 0, g equal to 0. And then when I read it, if ch is equal to t, t, capital T, then t++, same with c and same with g. G. So the answer is just going to be t squared plus c squared plus g squared, and I have to add the number of sets. So how do I work out the number of sets? I guess I'll just look at the number of t, the number of c, the number of g, and I'll take the minimum. I mean, if one of them is 0, that means I don't have any set. But if I have like 2, 2, 2, then the minimum of 3 is still 2. I have 2 sets. If I have 2, 2, 1, for example, the minimum is 1, so I have 1 set. So I have to look at TCG and go find the minimum and add it to answer. Well, that times 7. So answer, can I just do it here? Yeah, I'll just do it here. Plus min, that's a library call for minimum of t and the minimum of c and g. Okay, I think that should do it. We want to output it. In fact, we don't even need a variable here. We just do cout. You see how much easier that is? You don't have to do the whole system.out the print line. That's it. Now let's compile it. Make sure I don't have any errors. Let's run it. ttccgg. Now, when I press enter, nothing happens because I asked C++ to read a character at a time. So it's thinking maybe there's still more character to come. Well, in fact, you can give it more characters. It will keep on reading the character. If you want to stop the input, then you have to press Control D. So the other option is for you to put the input in a file, something I've done in the first video. So let's look at what am I supposed to put in. Let's do, by the way, did we get that one right? 26? No, we'll see. So let's put in tcg/ttc. You see, this can be helpful if you have very long, input. Oh, I did not get it right because I get 14 here. I'm supposed to get 26. So what did I do wrong? I don't see it actually. Let's try it. Sorry, I didn't explain that if you want to run a C++ program after you compile it, with that, you just type a.out. But again, if you're here, you probably already know a bit about C++. Let's try T, just T. Get 1. Yeah, that's right. How about just T? 4. So that's right. So why isn't ttccgg worked? Yeah, it's weird. Oh, whoops, sorry. You're probably looking at me. You probably already know what the problem is. 7 times. Okay. C++, and I'm gonna send an input. Sorry, it's called in1. Okay, in1, done. 21. Is that correct? Yeah, you get 21. So that should be the code. Even when you submit, it's faster when you use C++ because I'll show you. Just go switch editor, paste, submit, done. You don't have to enter the class name at all. I hope it works. Yep, it got accepted. So that's C++. As you can see, the syntax is mostly the same. You can do this in Java. Well, you can't do this while loop in Java, but you notice how input is just so much faster than having to do all this next in Java using scanner. And output is also faster. So that's pretty much it. This is like the start of the series on C++. When I think of a good trick to do in C++, I'll try to make a video for it. I'll also do some questions with C++ and try to put it here. I still have no idea where I'm going to be going with this, but hey, I like C++. If you got any questions about it, feel free to leave it in the comments and I'll try to reply. Okay, so that's it for the intro to C++. I'll see you in the next video.